Live from the Pix11 Social Media Center, she's got more than 30 years on the streets as an investigative reporter. Now, Pix11's Mary Murphy takes you deep into the world of cold cases, terrorism, America's drug crisis, and more. These are the Mary Murphy Files.
Good evening and welcome to Pix11 Facebook Live. I have a co-host this evening, my colleague James Ford, who literally just got back from the Bronx County Hall of Justice. Finally, more than 10 months after Lisandro Jr. Guzman Feliz was killed outside a Bronx bodega, the trial has officially opened. We have photos of Jr. You've seen them all these months on the internet, on television, in the newspapers. Everyone, it seems, knows about Jr. James, you covered it from the first day practically.
True.
When you got the surveillance video about what had happened
Right.
on 183rd Street.
Yeah, and to see it come
See
to
it play
this
out.
point, it's a milestone.
Right, and there were a lot of delays, and the defense said it needed more time. And finally in May, just about almost a year since this happened, but
Right.
now it started
June
today.
20th.
Yeah, we have some footage of Junior's parents. They were both in court together. We have them marching down the hall on the lower level of the Bronx County Hall of Justice. Mother Leandra Feliz, father Lisandro Guzman. He has a tattoo on his neck. I'm sure you've noticed it,
Right,
James.
that says Junior on it, and also walking in. And keep in mind, too, and this is going to be the case throughout trial now that it's begun, a lot of supporters showing up on a regular basis. She says as she walks in, she says, "Justice, justice," and she thanked some of the supporters who were there. And to my knowledge, the Bronx District Attorney's Office had told her not to say anything, but she felt compelled.
They're concerned about the case and because of all the pretrial publicity. And we announced this morning that the judge had reversed his ruling
Yes.
and would not allow audio of the
There you
opening
go.
statements.
I got it right here. I mean, and he issued this order. He issued an order saying, as we talked about earlier today, saying that there would be audio allowed in the courtroom, but then reversed that decision this morning, deciding that it just, for whatever reason. But I can tell you this, security, incredibly high, right? You were there today.
It's not
as
just
well.
when you enter the courthouse, it's when you also go into the courtroom
Right.
on the lower level.
Yes, yeah. You go through metal detectors to get in the House of Justice, the courthouse. Then to get in the courtroom, you have another security screening for metals. Really intense. This is part of it, this not having any kind of recording of any sort in the courtroom during trial.
Right. So I think we're going to go to your piece that you filed at 5 o'clock because you show some of the security and also talk a little bit about an outburst in court involving Junior's father. So let's show that piece that James filed today at 5 o'clock.
The high security is due in part to the fact that the 5 men on trial for first-degree murder are known Trinitario's gang members, according to their own attorneys. They also have been accused of taunting Junior's family since Junior's death, and today was apparently no exception.
One of the main ones, he just kept looking back at the family and just like laughing, literally laughing in their face. And I'm like, what's wrong with this guy? And so the father just got up and outburst using profanity at them, so they just pulled them out the courtroom.
Junior's father was asked to leave for the day. On trial, 5 men seen on surveillance video slashing, stabbing, beating Junior as he begged for his life while they dragged him from a bodega that fateful night last June 20th. But lawyers for 4 of the 5 men said in opening arguments that their clients did not administer the knife wound to Junior's neck that the medical examiner said killed him. They say this man, the 5th defendant, Jonaike Martinez Estrella, made the fatal stab wound. Junior's family says they're all guilty.
You all went with the intention to kill him. You all went with the intention to get these weapons, which can kill someone because these are sharp weapons. It's not like you went to just fist fight. It was premeditated.
All right, that's James' piece from 5 o'clock. I want to mention one particular defendant.
Sure.
Because his attorney made a very compelling opening statement after the prosecution. I want to talk about the poster boy, so to speak. That's how his attorney referred to him.
That was the word he used.
Yes, he said that Jose Muniz unfairly was made the poster boy of this crime because he was seen on surveillance with a machete. He admits that he had a machete.
Yes.
He admits that he's a Trinitarios gang member.
Also true.
And he admits he was on the scene, but he said he's unfairly being blamed for this horrific crime. Here are some of the quotes that he used today in court. He said he could have hacked him, Jose was careful to never let the sharp side of the blade come in contact with Junior. He made it look like he was doing his job as a Trinitario. When the machete comes down, only the flat side was exposed, but the boy is not a killer because he didn't intend to cause his death. And he said to the jury pretty much, you're going to have to find that there was an intent to have this teenager bleed out and die on the sidewalk if you're going to convict him, Muniz, of murder.
Right.
But I found him pretty compelling, the defense attorney.
Yes. And the prosecution is going to be challenged, particularly with that defendant, to prove that he is the killer. Even though the family of Junior made very clear, they're like, look, you all were there, you all intended to do harm. The fact that you were there, you intended to do harm, and that our loved one is gone means you're all murderers. That's their statement.
Yeah, and Jose Muniz on the surveillance is one of the first ones to move in. But the lethal wound came at the end of this 20-second attack. And let's sort of focus on the prosecutor now, Morgan Dolan. I have her marching into court this morning. She actually came into court around 9:30. We waited 3 hours for the opening statements. It's so difficult to get all 5 defendants in court at the same time.
Right, they're in different locations.
Right, and one of them's out in Suffolk County, last I heard.
Yeah.
So you know what traffic's like, right?
Sure.
So this is Morgan Dolan. She's the lead prosecutor and assistant district attorney for the Bronx. And she basically said that, this boy was set upon by not a pack of boys. They were men.
Right.
They were men. And I have some other quotes from her. She pointed out that the knife was 4.5 inches in depth and that it cut his jugular vein, Junior's jugular vein. She said this happened in the Little Italy section of Belmont, which was considered Sunset territory. And supposedly the Sunsets were rivals of the Shores gang, which is a subset of the Trinitarios. So we're seeing some footage from the special series I did last year. That's Junior's official case number from the 48th precinct. One of the quick shots you saw there showed Elvin Garcia. The prosecutor mentioned that he had gone to the hospital in Washington Heights after Junior's murder and claimed, his hand got hurt because he was defending his girlfriend's honor, that someone had dissed his girlfriend. But I guess they're going to try to prove otherwise with some of the witnesses. There's Jose Muniz again. And, there were developments in the last week, and I know both of us were very surprised. Kevin Alvarez, the first person arrested in the case, he made some kind of a plea deal. It's not very clear what it is. We don't even know what he pleaded guilty to, but he is on the witness list, and he is supposed to take the stand.
Right, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as part of the deal, he was released from custody.
Well, he's not released into the world. He was released from the Department of Correction because they're not basically going to be taking care of him anymore. But he is in protective custody.
Okay.
Where that protective custody is, I don't know.
Right, it's protective.
We don't know exactly what's going on.
Right.
They could be building a federal case against the Trinitarios. I mean, the feds had a case against them maybe 8 years ago in the Southern District. So, but that was a big bombshell that came out last week.
Sure, and that's quite a deal, A, for him, B, for the prosecutors as they continue to pursue this. Morgan Dolan, I thought, was very clear. I mean, she said, look, there were a lot of weapons, and you're going to hear a lot about different weapons, how they were used, as you were just saying with Jose Muniz.
Right.
And she's like, look, there were all of these people had knives or a machete. They all used them. They all intended to do bodily harm, and that was fatal.
Well, murder one, though, there has to be intent, that you intended to cause the death of another person. Let's show Jose Muniz. I have other footage of him. The reason I'm bringing him up again, there he is. That was when he was in New Jersey. You were there for that arraignment.
Yes.
Yeah, and in fact, he was crying at one of the appearances. He was very upset. And his attorney is saying that the medical examiner's report does not show any kind of bruise, not a little mark or anything from a machete, that there was no evidence that anything he did with his weapon caused Junior to die.
Right.
And they're all saying that Jonike Martinez Estrella, who inflicted allegedly the fatal wound into the neck, that he's the one that should get the blame. They didn't use his name in the opening statements, but I have footage of Jonike's defense attorney, Kyle Waters. Kyle Waters tried yet again to file a motion before the judge, Robert Neary, saying that I want my client severed from this case. Everyone's pointing the finger at him. Hostile co-defendants.
Right. I mean, essentially, he's asking for mistrial. right?
He didn't come out and say mistrial, or I heard that word thrown around once, but I
Yeah.
don't think it came from him. I heard him saying that he wanted his client separate from these other 4 guys because they're all pointing the finger at Janike.
And it's fascinating as well to me that, I mean, here you have this case where there are 5 defendants at once. I mean, that's a huge case. I mean, one could make an argument, and his attorney did, that with this being so large and we've got 4 different entities pointing toward this one guy, that it's just unfair to his client. The Junior's family strongly disagrees, and clearly the judge said, "No way, we're keeping this the way it was. We've taken long enough to get to this point."
We have a lot of viewers watching, James, and one is saying Nessa Lima. It's not a compelling case to make it all. You can see Jose Muniz attacking Junior. Other people are saying, they're all liable. If you're hunting someone down in cars with 10 or more people with knives and a machete, so not everyone is buying the argument that because the machete was not used to hack Junior,
Right.
that it was not a weapon.
Sure. I mean, the question is, will the jury buy it? And we'll see. It was very interesting jury. In fact, Morgan Dolan, the prosecutor, pointed out that this is a jury made up of lifelong Bronx residents. So you could hear in the various defense opening statements them trying to appeal to kind of in my view, kind of a neighborhood vibe, kind of an appeal to